The Galactic Council had been very clear on this point. Humans were not to be trusted with younglings of any predator species. Dr. Sarah Chun had heard this proclamation countless times during her 3 years aboard the research station Kepler's Dream, orbiting the twin suns of the Vorth system. Its biological impossibility, High Counselor Zrek had declared during the last xenobiology conference. No apex predator in recorded galactic history has ever permitted another species proximity to their offspring. The human neurochemistry, with its chaotic emotional responses and unpredictable behavioral patterns, makes such trust even more unlikely. Sarah had kept quiet during that meeting, as she always did. Let them think what they wanted about human chaos and unpredictability. She had work to do. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday if Tuesdays meant anything this far from Earth. Sarah was analyzing tissue samples in lab 7 when the emergency klaxons began wailing. She rushed to the observation deck, joining a crowd of various alien researchers all pressing against the reinforced viewing ports. Below them, on the station's biodome surface, a Catherian apex stalker paced frantically. The creature stood nearly 4 meters tall, its crystalline exoskeleton catching the light of the twin suns like fractured diamonds. But this wasn't what had triggered the alarms. Beside the massive predator lay a clutch of 3 eggs, each the size of a human torso, pulsing with the soft bioluminescence that indicated imminent hatching. And one of them was cracking. The parent is exhibiting extreme distress, observed Dr. Velter, the station's chief xenobiologist. His tentacles writhed nervously as he studied the readings. Catherians are notoriously protective during hatching. Cycles. The proximity sensors indicate something is wrong with the first egg. Sarah watched the stalker's behavior through the viewport. The creature's movements were indeed frantic, but not aggressive. There was something almost pleading in the way it approached the cracking egg, then backed away, then approached again. The hatchling is positioned incorrectly, Sarah said suddenly. Look at the crack pattern. It's not following the natural emergence lines. How could you possibly know that? Dr. Velter's voice carried the skeptical tone Sarah had grown accustomed to. Because I've been studying Catherian reproduction cycles for 2 years, she replied calmly. The parent knows the hatchling will die if it can't break free properly. But stalker anatomy isn't designed for delicate manipulation. Their claws are too large, too powerful. Below them, the stalker let out a sound that resonated through the station's hull, a deep, harmonious note that spoke of desperation across species lines. Someone needs to help, Sarah said, already moving toward the exit. Absolutely not. Dr. Velter blocked her path with 2 of his tentacles. Station protocols forbid. Station protocols don't account for the situation, Sarah interrupted. That hatchling dies in the next 10 minutes if someone doesn't intervene. And I'm the only one here with hands small enough and steady enough to help. The argument that followed was brief but heated. In the end, it was Counselor Merrick's, the station's Vorthian administrator, who made the decision. Dr. Chun's expertise in Catherian biology is unquestionable, Merrick stated, her scaled hide shifting colors to indicate deep contemplation. But the risk? The risk is mine to take, Sarah said firmly. I'm not asking anyone else to approve of this. I'm asking not to be stopped. 20 minutes later, Sarah found herself in an environmental suit, stepping onto the biodome surface. The Catherian stalker immediately focused on her approach, rising to its full height. Its 6 eyes tracked her movement, and Sarah could hear the deep rumbling sound that served as its primary vocalization. She stopped 10 meters away from the clutch and slowly removed her helmet, letting her human scent carry in the filtered atmosphere. The stalker's rumbling changed pitch. Sarah took another step forward, then sat down cross-legged on the artificial grass. She began to speak in a low, steady voice, not in any language the stalker could understand, but in the universal tones of reassurance that seemed to transcend species. The massive predator watched her for several minutes. Then, impossibly, it stepped aside. Sarah approached the cracking egg with careful, deliberate movements. The hatchling inside was indeed trapped, its natural emergence pattern disrupted by what appeared to be a genetic variation in shell thickness. Using tools she brought from the lab, Sarah carefully scored additional fracture lines, following the creature's natural growth patterns. The hatchling emerged 15 minutes later, a perfect miniature of its parent, its tiny crystalline plates already beginning to catch and reflect light. It made a small chirping sound and immediately oriented toward its parent. The adult stalker approached Sarah then, lowering its massive head until it was level with her seated form. For a moment, they regarded each other across the vast gulf of evolution and biology. Then the stalker did something no xenobiologist had ever recorded. It extended one massive claw and gently, incredibly gently, touched Sarah's shoulder. The gesture lasted only seconds, but every researcher watching from the observation deck would remember it for the rest of their careers. Back on the station, as Sarah cleaned up in the decontamination chamber, Dr. Velter approached her with something that might have been respect in his expression. "The council will need to revise their assessment," he admitted grudgingly. Sarah smiled as she watched through the viewport. The Stalker family was moving away from the station now, the newly hatched offspring walking steadily between its parent and siblings. "Maybe they'll realize that trust isn't about being the same species," she said. "It's about recognizing when someone cares enough to help, regardless of what they look like or where they come from." The next day, Sarah received an official commendation from the Galactic Council. But more importantly, she received something else, a small crystalline fragment that had fallen from the hatchling during its emergence. The stalker had deliberately left it behind a gift from one caregiver to another. In her report, Sarah wrote simply, "Predator species are not defined by their capacity for violence, but by their capacity for protection." Today, a human was deemed worthy of that trust. Perhaps it's time we reconsidered what we think we know about the nature of both predators and humans. The fragment now sat on her desk, catching the light of distant stars and serving as a reminder that sometimes the greatest discoveries come not from studying differences, but from recognizing what connects all living things: the instinct to care for the vulnerable, regardless of species or origin.